Hi, I'm Martin and I own Martin Welberg Scenic Studios. I'm very pleased to see you all. This is the second time I have to skip the Amherst Railroad Hobby Show. Last year in 2020 I should attend for demonstrations in the Scenic Express booth, but due to a recovery after suffering an appendix surgery I had to cancel it. I discussed it with Jim and we postponed it to 2021, but this year we have other problems and we have to cancel our visit to the show unfortunately, something like that, because we're still living in the midst of this pandemic and with all the restrictions we have worldwide. I'm pretty pleased with the nowadays internet and the possibilities it has to stay in touch, and I'm very pleased that the Amherst Railway Society found a way to connect to you, the audience. Although I would love to see you in the flesh and have a chat about the greatest hobby in the world during a real life clinic or a demonstration, I do believe that this is the way we connect nowadays, and this is the best option in these hard times. But with a vaccine produced and more on the way, I have good hopes that you and I will meet and talk in 2020 at the Amherst Railroad Hobby Show. For now, I'm pleased to see you in front of a monitor or TV and watch the first clinic I do for the Railroad Hobby Show. This clinic or presentation will be about advanced scenery and modeling with the use of modern tools and materials. And now I hear you think, oh no, more computers and digital stuff on the way. But honest, no computers, no digital stuff. We discuss static applicators and vacuum cleaners and a bit about flock glue and other things. So in the first part, I will be talking about static grass. For me here in Europe, a technique already in use for 2 decades. To be honest, when I started modeling back in 2010 and not Grassmaster, now the 1.0 was one of the first modeling tools I bought. Now, from what I understand, the recent introduced version, the 3.0 and the 3.1, have more power and more reliability features than they used to have back then. But seeing Truls Kirk working on his layout with this machine on his coastline railroad, I needed one of these to achieve the goals I had in mind, and it's still a purchase I don't regret. And honestly, I think that a static applicator is one of the must-have tools a trained modeler needs. We use DCC, modern power tools and more to build our baseboards and run our trains. And then we did some foam or crappy colored sawdust on the layout to model our nature. The principle of flocking, as the static application is called, is all around us. The hood headliner in the back of your car, the flock boxes they put your jewelry in, you buy for your lady, and the nice soft fuzzy prints on t-shirts, you know, they are all flocked, mostly with very short fibers, but it's fiber flock in a glue base. Now I can tell you who introduced static application in modeling. As long as I remember, there are these awful grass mats, 2x4 foot or something, with one color and one length, you know. But I can imagine one day a guy thought that it could be fun to use a static applicator he's using at his work on his layout. You know, we as creators often use materials for different purposes than meant to be for. But for us, you and me, it's not that interesting. The important part is what we can do with the static energy to achieve the most natural looking scenery on our layout. Okay, and what do we need to achieve results like this? Well, to be honest, I don't think that much. First of all, you need a static applicator, a machine to do the job for you. You need flock fibers or static grass in several colors and lengths, a bit of water-based glue, a round beaten up brush and a lot of time. And yeah, I can hear you say a lot of time, this precious thing we all lack. In my opinion, if you spend your time efficient, you can achieve a great natural looking result, almost like the real thing. So let's start and talk a bit about the applicator. There are a few on the market nowadays, a couple of them not available in the USA and some USA American brands not easy to lay your hands on in Europe. So for you guys over here, I stick to the Static King from Woodland Scenics, the one and only US brand I worked with. I tested the Static King when I did clinics at the National Narrow Gauge Convention in Sacramento. So I can say that the Static King, especially when the wall power unit is used, works well and will do the job. What I used in the demonstration video is the Static King because Jim sent me one. Well, I used a lot of machines in the 10 years I model now. I started in 2010, one of the first things I bought, but I said before, to use on my layout was the Nog Grassmaster. Well, according to Nog, it would provide 15 kilos kilovolts of static energy with the use of a 9-volt block, but I couldn't reach the power they said it would be delivering, 10 kilovolt maximum. So I modified it a little bit and clipped it to a wall power unit of 12 volts. The wall power units pumped up kilovolts and boosted the charge. Well, it was a bit of a gamble and it could damage the machine, so it's not recommended. Because I posted an awful lot of pictures online of my work. They noticed me and asked me if I wanted to become the grass master of a big project for 1000 square feet in Essen, Germany. So I traveled weekly to Oberhausen to work on this project, and that's where the first time I laid my hands on a 70 kilovolt Mach Aeroflot. Well, that is a device, people, that is a device. It delivers 17 kick-ass kilovolts of power, and it is the turn of my life. I went on with static grass, not only in the hobby, but as a professional as well. Working in Germany, I bought my own 70 kilovolt unit. I had a follow-up in the even more professional 80 kilovolt units from Borgert and Muller. We have 3 now, which we use in production. For all these years, I tried, and tried even more. And a lot of people started asking me, Martin, what is the best machine on the market? Well, do you need so much power? And all these kind of questions. To be honest, I will try and answer a couple. First question, what people ask me most of the time is, do you need power? My answer here is yes. If you start and buy one of these T-strain sieve type of thing, I think that you will be disappointed when you try to shoot fibers longer as 2mm. So I recommend a decent hobby grade machine that is at least 15 kilovolts of static energy. Do you need more power? That depends on the scale you work in and what you intend to do and shoot with the machine. If you work in HO scale and you like to shoot mainly 2mm fibers with some 4.5mm accents, then a machine from 15 to 25 kilovolt will be sufficient. If you intend to shoot a lot of 6mm and 12mm fibers, I recommend spending a bit more money and try to find powerful machines. RTS Screen Keep, which will soon be available through Scenic Express, produces good 35 and 55 kilovolt static applicators. But if you have a bit more time, a Corsa mesh will work too. So here I leave it for now. Enough talk about machine. Up next is the main battle axe. My weapon of choice when it comes to creating realistic scenery with static grass is a round, beaten up, battered brush. Well, yeah, it used to be a new one, and I can hear you say nobody produces brushes like that, and I must say you're right here. So one of the first things I will show you in this clinic is how to treat a brush so that it will be perfect for the job we intended for. I use a round brush with natural hog hair, and you find it in my country for cheap in almost any dollar or hardware store, and these cheap brushes are perfect for what I have in mind for them. No need for expensive ones, just watch why. In the USA, this style paintbrush is available in a 3-piece set through Scenic Express. First of all, I take a bowl with water. Clean tap water and ditch the brush or brushes in the bowl. And let it stand for a couple of hours. Most of the time it's an overnight process. In the meantime, we search for a piece of leftover plywood from our layout build, or some styrofoam we used for building our scenery. And also an old rag or t-shirt is an attribute we need. And for what do we need them? Well, to dry our brush with the rag. All the water it's soaked up must be removed, and then we start dabbing the brush on a piece of ply or styrofoam. Dabbing, smashing, or whatever you would like to do, but the brush needs to look like this. A brush with all the hairs widespread so they can handle small drops of glue to put down on the surface. That's the preparation of the brush. Now it's time to prepare our glue, and I can hear you think, do you need to? And yes, you do, because most of the ready-made glues are not thin enough to let a glue drop run off the brush hairs. You need to prepare. You need to thin down the glue to a consistency of skimmed milk. It has to flow easy. So, and what glue do we need? Well, to be honest, there are several glues you can use. I myself use a PVA school glue most of the time, or an acrylic binder. Can hear another question coming up. An acrylic what? Well, an acrylic binder is a raw material they use for the manufacturing of acrylic paint. A pretty thick consistency, which can be thinned with water to the consistency we need it, but still has enough body to stick our fibers in with static energy. But I believe that any water-based PVA glue will work as long as it doesn't build up a skin too fast. Can I use a regular carpenter or craft PVA glue is a question that pops up very often. And as an answer I say yes, no problem, as long as you keep the areas to work on pretty small. Regular carpenter or PVA glue does build this skin very fast and was designed for clamping materials you use. When you shoot static grass, we don't clamp, and what happens is that because of the skin, the fibers can be shot into the glue. This upper surface is already dry and all the fibers bounce off. So what glues do I use? In the USA, glues like Elmer's School Glue or a glue all, Scenic Express Tacky Glue works fine. Mod Podge matte, a matte medium concentrate. Don't know, guess any PVA or acrylic based glue that doesn't skin too fast will work. We dilute it with tap water to a thin, skimmed milky consistency, and as long as it flows off the brush head pretty easy. I don't know if I mentioned, but your goal is to create a bunch of tiny droplets of glue on the surface where you will shoot your fibers in. Now I know that there is a bunch of manufacturers that sell an already mix you can use to glue your ballast to the layout, and I can hear the question popping up, well man, Martin, does this work? And I say no. Because of the addition of a flow aid, it's designed to penetrate into your ballast. It's gonna start to flow, and as I mentioned before, our goal is to create tiny little droplets on the surface. Well, most of the time I use big 5-liter cans. A good 1 gallon jug in the US, but I can't determine how big your layout is and how much surface you will cover with static grass. Most of the time I prepare on site a good amount. Use 16 ounce to prepare a good 30 to 32 ounce of glue. Mixing a ratio of 1 part glue to 2 parts water makes a good solution depending on the material you use. Well, now you have your device, prepared your brush and glue. Time to move on and tell a little bit about the fibers. Often hear the question, what do you do to achieve natural looking colors? Huh? What? You need to prepare the fibers? They don't come out straight out of... Yes and no. Straight out of the box, most fibers on the market are too bright. Some even have funny bright red and yellows between the greens. So what we do is mix them. Combine colors like pointillistic painters like Sarah did on canvas. Combine a couple of colors to the point that it has the color of your liking. See it as pigments in paint. By combining red and yellow you have orange, yellow and blue makes green. In fibers an olive green and a beige makes a late summer. And how do I determine this color? Well, for me that's pretty easy. I do it on site and I do it from memory. But my advice to most of you is that you take pictures or scavenge around the internet of these things you want or like to model, and use this picture or pictures as a reference to mix your fibers on. Well, you put your fibers on a thing and look and check and all these kind of things until it's reasonable the same. So let's try something. For example, I downloaded the picture from the internet from what I would like to achieve on this Dutch modules, and I think it's a late summer. So late summer for me in the basic is almost 50% of beige and a olive green. The olive green is the kind of green like Mini Nature has in stock. I think Jim from Scenic Express carries them too. I know Jim from Scenic Express carries this brand. They're pretty good and pretty nice fibers. And we mixed the two colors together in a bowl, and most of the time I will vacuum it or shake it or something so they mix good. 2 millimeters you can shake. 4.5 and 6 millimeter and even longer fibers, I throw them through the Dyson to mix. So what I say, almost a 50% of olive green and beige makes this late summer, and you check it on the picture. That's no deal. Most of the time you add a bit of beige to tone it down. All colors I use are blended together from 5 base colors. I use a light green, an olive green, a beige, a brown and a reddish brown. The last 2 colors I mostly use for winter or fall modeling. As you know, in hot summers the colors will fade to browns, oranges, beige, all these dry colors. So we do mixed colors, we blend them together, but we don't blend but we don't blend lengths together. I stick in my layering with 2 millimeters, 4 millimeters and 6 millimeters. Various colors in a blend, but not lengths. I do think Scenic Express offers perhaps the best range and color selection of static grasses in the USA. So for now on, I'd like to go on and talk a little bit about how greens, grasses and weeds are layered. Since I do a lot of scenery modeling, I watch and look more and more to the real thing, you know. That is, strange things happens, but yeah, I looked at women. I used to look at women and now I look at nature. I go out, take some walks, taking pictures, taking videos, all things that can, you know, all modern nowadays tools you can use to create your reference material. Now from observation, I noticed that the first layers of grass almost all the time consists of a light green young undergrowth, almost like in spring, you know. And on top of that you have this layer of dead grasses, more bare tones, dry toned. Well, that's what you do in the first two layers. You model you add light green followed by a layer of beige, and then on top of it comes the final color, in which I like to see the layout. It can be it depends on what you like to model. You can change it. Start with the dry grasses, add some greens in between, and more dry grasses on top. If you like very dry land, but most of the time I follow with the final color on top. So, and then the last thing we need before we start is a vacuum cleaner. Not that much to say. I always use a Dyson because it has no dust bag. The container comes in very convenient, but you can use a regular vacuum cleaner with a dust bag and put a nylon stocking over the hose to recover the loose fibers in the process. They're pretty, yeah, for the, I think fibers are pretty expensive, and everything you need you can recover in your materials comes in handy all the time. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. So now I think it's time to start. We have our modules, our layout with a raw scenery build. I do use pink foam or XPS all the time because I love to work with this material. It has a different color over here, but most of the time it's called pink foam in the US, I think. And almost all the time I cover it with sculptor mold, just because of a little bit of a hard shell. The sculptor mold is painted painted with a black brown or grayish brown flat latex paint. I think you call it in the US of A. It's a basic wall paint that they mix in any color at your do-it-yourself home improvement store. So with our base color on, we can start with irregular patches of glue. We use the glue we also prepared for the grass fibers, and depending on the area we like to model, we add real soil or a fine turf in the earth color you like. I use a lot of Scenic Express flock and turf, very nice fine tones, and I prefer a fine earth tone like the Natural Earth EX857E, which I use a lot also in my regular production. You keep in mind where you want your dirt roads and footpaths, and after it's dry for most of the time overnight, after this is dry, and for me it's most of the time an overnight thingy, I do the same thing again and add irregular patches of glue in between the patches of earth. And sprinkle a layer of fine turf of Scenic Express khaki green fine EX826E, which is a faded green. I like it a lot, and it represents for me the first layer of mossy undergrowth. I didn't mention that in the story before, but underneath the spring colored grasses, the fresh young ones, there will be a mossy, depending on the area of course you model, a mossy thing somewhat, or there will grow mosses. So this represents the first layer of moss underground, and again, yeah, we wait. Oh well, man, waiting is something, oh, I hate this as a modeler, waiting, you know, but we have to wait until it's completely dry before we can move on. So when it's completely dry, we grab our, well, now it's time to grab the static applicator, the pot of glue, the brush, and the 2mm light green spring mix we have. Take the brush, dry it, shape it as shown before, and dip it gently in the glue, you know, real gently. Only the The other tips, the ends of the brush, the glue of the hairs must be covered with glue. Now you dab it gently on the surface. Where we like to cover our layout with static, do it gently, and keep in mind that everywhere the brush touches, also even if you don't see glue, there will be glue. There's one mistake most people make, and that is that they think that static grass needs a very thick layer of glue to stand up and adhere to. Even in the thinnest layer, the static grass fibers will stand up straight. If it doesn't, it has more to do with power of the machine than it has with the static grass with the glue. You know, it's just that some manufacturers try to tell you that you need their pretty thick glue to glue their fibers to. The end result is most of the time, I call it some kind of felt tile we use here as floor covering. So what I mentioned before is that these fibers will stand in the smallest drops of glue and all this kind of thing. So now I will mention and I will tell you don't try to do too much surface at once. You know, keep it small. Yeah, something like that. And keep in mind that the staticking works best when you close the. So when you did glue your surface with all these tiny drops of. With all these tiny drops of glue, you take your staticking, you fill it with the 2mm spring mix. Yeah, you you turn on the sieve, put on the machine, and then start shaking. But keep in mind that the machines and all static machines work the best when you use a distance between the glue or the surface and the machine from around 1/2 to 1 inch. So you shake, rattle and roll, shut down the machine, put it aside, and then you wait again. Easy, you know, easy peasy. Most water-based glues dry pretty fast but not tough, so they have the final strength after a day, but most of the time you can work on after 10 to 20 minutes. And after 10 to 20 minutes you grab your vacuum cleaner and hover over the surface at the same height as you did with the staticking. This will vacuum off all the loose fibers of the surface. This will vacuum off all the loose fibers on the surface. Well, this will get rid of most of the loose fibers laying around on the surface, so that you can that you can work on. Now you have to decide if you go on and do a larger part of your layout, or you do the second layer on the part you already covered. It's pretty easy. For the second layer, you have the same. You start. I do have to note something here, and that is that you please maintain a cleaning process for your brush in between, and do that frequently. This allows what Jim told me is wicking of the glue at the tips of the brush fibers and keeps your brush in shape like it has, you know. Do it regular. So with all the fibers removed, you can go on to the second layer or do more on the layout. That's your decision. Again, we grab and dry and shape the brush. Clean, dry and shape is something we need to do often in between. It's a lot of work, I know, but you have to, because you want these small droplets. Again, dip the brush in the glue and dab it onto the surface of where you want your second layer. And you do that as random as possible. Add a little bit of glue on top of the fibers already existing on the again, just do it on top of the already existing layer. Again, tiny drops, not too much, not too thick. Clean and shape in between. Add glue. It's not that difficult, but you have to try and just do it. And please don't think too much about where you want to place it in these stages. It's more or less from it has to be a little bit random. So while adding glue, grab the staticking and add a layer of beige fibers. I know beige sounds a little bit funny out of my mouth in English. I had a little bit of a problem with the word already. You wait a short time and then vacuum again, it's the same like you did in the first layer. And then, it's pretty easy, pretty simple. Then you add your final layer of 2mm fibers. Most of the time, this is in the color I like them to be. So if I want to model late summer, I do these faded green mix I showed you before. That's that for me it represents late summer, and because this final layer will give you the final result and the final overall color. Yeah, you do it again. It's the same. It's the same process again. You know, you use your brush, dip it in the glue, ditch it on the layout with tiny drops, grab your static king, fill it with fibers, shake them, and that's it. There you have your final layer of 2mm fibers. You can use a daddy stone or even mix some more color in between, and in the mixes to add slightly change the colors and add more interest to the overall look. When you finish this layer, you vacuum again, lightly, on the same way, you know, you hover over the surface with a distance of an inch, half an inch, and then you let it dry overnight. You know, when you let it dry overnight, it's getting tough. Then you come on the next day, grab the vacuum cleaner and start vacuuming it very thoroughly. Yeah, get rid of all the loose fibers you have on the layout. And why do we do that? Because that makes it easier to add more layers of longer fibers. So for me, a minimum is just one layer more in HO scale, one more layer of 4.5mm fibers. Most of the time I grab the color I used before. That's the final color of the 2mm. In this case, often I use often a late summer. If you add these on top of the layers with 2mm fibers, it's just like there are some slightly longer grasses poking out of the shorter ones. Yeah, you know, grasses can be very long. You know, they're growing here in the Netherlands along the highway. You have grasses and weeds growing over the safety railing, and the safety railing is at 75 centimeters. That's around somewhat more than 2 foot. So and they grow almost like a meter high, 1 meter 20. So 4 foot, between 3 and 4 foot high. You know. Now this you can use and reuse and try and work on this process. It's time. Yeah, you can go on and do as much as you like and make your layers as dense as you want to. Just use the same technique over and over again at 4.5mm, at 6mm, at 12mm. Well, but keep the layers not too dense. You know, at the end it's more or less the layering that makes depth in it. The only thing you do is that you think a little bit about where you want to add your longer fibers. You know, most of the time just check where they grow. You vary it with colors, fill the hopper, nice greens, beige tones, whatever you want. It's not that easy. It's not that hard, you know. So for now, I think I talked enough about static grass. I showed you the most important technique I use to achieve my scenery. What I think the most important part after this with it to get more interesting views on a scene. You add weeds, you add bushes, you add all kind of things to make the complete scene more and more interesting to the viewer. There are several materials on hand. Scenic Express carries the entire line of my products. I think they are great, as I say myself. But by using several weeds and bushes, you will get more interesting sections. You will get a more interesting overall look for the viewer and yourself, of course. What I show you here in a couple of B-roll videos is how you add them with a drop of glue and where you add them. It's pretty hard to understand, to explain. I will do that in a next video, I think. So for now, I think I'm gonna end this video. We already shot an awful lot of footage and just have to edit it. Please follow us on the Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the notifications when new videos are online. We work hard to share our expertise and know-how to you, the audience, and let you create the most natural and realistic looking scenery. So thanks for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see each other next time, and hopefully here at the Amherst Railroad Hobby Show in the flesh. See ya. Bye bye.